Healing Intelligence, A Mystical Mushroom Experience. Written by Dr. Lucas Pollock. Into the Unknown Australia, Leonard Bay, 1993. Endless expanses. The sun towers high above the horizon. The vault of the sky makes the gigantic cloud towers look like little dwarfs. Orange, red, violet. Wherever I turn, the sky glows and vibrates in a supernatural blaze of color. The indigenous people of Australia believe that their land is part of a multi-dimensional world that they call Dreamtime, an eternal now in which past, present, and future flow into one another, just like in my dreams. Ever since childhood, I wanted to experience the richness of my dreams while awake. Now, fate has given me a golden ticket for a mystical experience at the world's end. We spent days in the van because they wanted to show me the magic of untouched nature at the last southern tip of their continent. Since the Stone Age, people have taken magic mushrooms in communion as a sacred ritual in nature. I had only been in Australia for 3 months and had magically fallen in with 3 friends, Tony, Heather, and Francis. I don't remember doing anything about it apart from telling them my dreams and asking about theirs. Their annual mushroom ritual was part of how they lived their dreams. These magical mushrooms were neither toxic nor addictive, as I had previously read in Plants of the Gods, an ethnopharmacological reference book that had just been published. Even the drive through the endless, deserted landscapes was a supernatural experience compared to Europe. We only made one stop, so that Heather could show us her former home. When we reached Heather's former elementary school during the tour of the forest settlement, a family of gophers escaped down the steps into the thicket. Heather laughed so hard that the freckles on her snub nose began dancing. She was the fairy-like red-haired daughter of a forest ranger, and what her pale complexion didn't suggest, she had grown up in the Australian wilderness. She was one of the last to leave the village with a heavy heart to study in Melbourne. In China, we have huge abandoned cities that the forest has reclaimed, says Francis. Maybe their residents just went to find mushrooms to detox from the madness of the city, like we did, teased Heather. Francis frowned. Then she announced with a dramatic gesture worthy of a Peking opera actress. "Ah, that's why no one's come back, and that's why I moved to Canberra, where you live in the woods. But I gladly moved on to Melbourne for friends like you in the sea," Francis replied, laughing and hugging Heather. "Yes, the sea, and you wouldn't have met your Viennese philosopher if you hadn't moved to Melbourne." "Lucas, what do you say?" Heather asked, waving me over to them as they laughed again, looking like 2 drunken angels. "Lucas, I'm sure you've researched everything again, and that you're thinking of 1,000 things again. But what's more important now is the group hug, our friendship ritual. That's the best medicine. Tony, are you joining us?" There we were, a wild mix, 2 Australians, a Texan-Chinese woman, and her exotic friend from Austria, who couldn't decide whether to take Ludwig Wittgenstein or Arnold Schwarzenegger as his role model. How unlikely it was to find friends in the middle of nowhere whom I could trust enough to experience mushrooms together. But I was awake, and they were there. It took a few more moments, and I no longer thought about where we came from or who we were. We were just people, and my restless mind came to rest. After another day in the van, I finally arrived, got out, and immediately had to close my eyes. Blinded by the sun's brilliance, I marveled at its play of light with my eyes closed. The warmth of the sun was like the warmth of an embrace. Safe and sound, I watched the dark blue-violet spheres pulsating in a golden-red storm of color. The darkness in the light fascinated me for a long time, but then a drop of sweat from the sun running down my face brought me back into my body. I wanted to see where we were and opened my eyes. Infinite expanses. The sun is enthroned high above the horizon. The vault of the sky makes the gigantic cloud towers look like little dwarfs. Orange, red, violet. Wherever I turn, the sky glows and vibrates in a supernatural blaze of color. Underneath, a pristine sandy beach reveals itself. At its borders, coastal winds mix the salty sea air with the ethereal scent of translucent green-blue clouds floating back to the sea from the distant eucalyptus forests. The worries and hardships of my life are swallowed up by the waves of the deep blue ocean and disappear in a golden glow that unites the sun and sandy beach. Endless expanses and not a trace of a human being. A dark certainty has taken hold of me, but it is nonetheless conciliatory. I, myself, and everything I know is built on sand, humanity, the glow of a grain of sand in the sunlight. It's still about 3 hours to Squeaky Beach. It's best to take the gold caps now. That way, our circulation remains stable through hiking. We'll be heading towards a destination together, and always feel like we're making progress. Tony calls after me, and I catch up with the group. Until the body gets used to the new state, you may feel streams of warmth, dizziness, or nausea. Then the psychedelic effect kicks in about half an hour to an hour. Tony explains the process of our mushroom trip. If it gets too much, breathe calmly and do whatever makes you feel good. What happens is psychedelic, an expression of your spirit. The mushroom experience is healing and peaceful when you are peaceful. If we also make sure we stay together, we will all return to a healthier and more beautiful world in about 4 hours. Tony finishes our initiation with a smile and hands each of us a small, colorful plastic cup. I empty my bright green cup and keep the bitter, earthy, golden yellow mushroom coated in sweet honey in my mouth. A small sip for my body, but a big step for my soul, I think, and venture into the unknown. Blackstone World. Francis, Heather, and Tony march unimpressed through the fantastic change in Australia's landscapes. The forest and sandy beach have disappeared. A landscape of rock and stone stretches out before us. The meter-high waves crash thunderously in the distance. I walk through the sea of rocks, carried by the gentle sound of the waves. With every step I take, I am happier just to be here. The separation between me and the world has dissolved. The others move on. I have arrived. The darkness begins to glow. Large and small rocks are scattered everywhere. The alien black sparkling rocks of the stone landscape magically attract me. Their darkness is both menacing and beautiful. The longer I look at the surface of the stones, the more fractal shapes emerge. Their streams form mysterious patterns of myriads of dark, unearthly glowing colors before disappearing into the atmosphere. A black rock rises in the middle of the stony landscape. Its luminous darkness sets it apart from its surroundings. Like a black hole, the stone absorbs all life and light. I get the feeling that I should be afraid. Instead, I walk straight towards the stone. I want to know what is happening here. The clouds cover the sun. A large shadow falls over the sea of rocks. The closer I get to the stone, the colder and darker it gets. With every step, what I see in front of me looks more and more like a gravestone, pleasantly warm, pleasantly heavy. Breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, pleasantly wide and free at the same time. I kneel, close my eyes, and embrace the stone, letting my weight sink entirely onto it. The feeling of threat recedes. The cold stone cools my forehead and brings me into the here and now. I am alive. I am here to find my nature in nature. I open my eyes, rise, and look at the oracle in the pattern of the stone. For a moment, the surface begins to glow. I see a fox's head emerge from a golden light and lose myself in its piercingly hypnotic gaze. Then I notice the violet glow in his eyes. He is part of the magical nature that had previously cast a fractal spell over me in the sea of rocks. Purple mushrooms grow from his ears. My role model, the psychoanalyst C.G. Jung, could talk to spirits and dream figures without magic mushrooms. I listen and wait for the wisdom of nature amid its magical splendor. But the fox remains silent. The dark gravestone pulsates with black light, devouring the golden light. A moment later, the fox is swallowed up by the blackness. All that remains is a stone. Nature speaks in riddles. I am too stupid for the other world. I bow my head in grief and feel as if I'm dying of loneliness. Then I hear a bell ringing in the distance. No, it's voices. Voices are calling Lucas, 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 over and over again. I lift my head and turn in the direction from which I hear the voices. Tony, Francis, and Heather are just in sight, shouting, waving, and pointing at me. I start walking, and they turn around and keep walking. I can see that they will soon pass a massive rock that stands like a small mountain on the stone beach. If I run around it from the other side, I can surprise my friends, I think to myself, and my legs start to move. When I reach my destination, I press my back against the cold stone and wait. My breathing becomes calmer. Time passes. Tony? Heather? Francis? Francis? I peer over the edge of the cliff. Confused, I take a few steps to make sure. I am alone. The others have disappeared. On the tree of knowledge, I take off my shoes and lay my garment on a stone in the sun. That's when I notice a tree at the edge of the sandy path that led me here from the rocky promontory. My gaze drifts over the islands scattered like stepping stones before Tasmania in the sea and settles on the distant horizon. I climb the tree. It's perfectly suited for a better view of them. Its numerous branches provide support and places to lean everywhere. I place my feet securely on the fork of a protruding branch and brace myself with my hands on the trunk and a higher branch. I look out over the sea. A sense of connection flows through me. I perceive the beauty of the world and feel a deep gratitude for life. No sign of civilization in sight. Overwhelmed by the sacred sublimity of nature, I let my gaze wander over the Australian sky, which shines in 1,000 colors and is interwoven with golden threads. Above becomes below, and my spirit dives into the sky, falling deeper and deeper, losing itself in its multi-dimensional spheres. The feeling of extinguishing is the ultimate orgasm. My feet twitch, losing their grip. Instantly, I am one with my body, and before I fall, I manage to hold on to 2 branches. One moment I was in heaven, the next I am again a movement-impaired human ape, unable to stand upright on the tree. I sigh, squat on the fork of the branch, and let my feet dangle. I spot a larger island that I had previously overlooked and remember why I fled to the end of the world, to Australia. We go to work in the city to have a place where we can lock ourselves in and be alone with ourselves. We, naked apes, sit in our cages, without sun, without sky, never climbing a tree. We stare at screens all day and talk into devices, and in doing so, we unlearn the ability to really talk to each other. No wonder we're not happy in our cages, I thought to myself. Poor apes, a spiritual voice quietly said in the background. Poor apes, I repeated what the voice had said. The mushroom speaks. It dawns on me. After a while I spoke in amazement, because it was so unusually peaceful. I was already afraid of what could happen on this trip. So many people warned me. They told me so many eerie things. The things the apes talk about, the gentle voice spoke as if from nowhere. They lure all the apes into the city. There they become sick and angry. It's sickening to live without sky and nature, I thought to myself as I looked out over the sea from the tree at the distant islands of Tasmania. When this journey is over, I will have to return to those concrete cages. I will have to work in front of screens for the rest of my life if I want to change anything in this world of apes. We belong in the forest, but we lock ourselves up, apes that even build flying cages to fly to the moon. We are at war with our own nature, from which there is no escape. The space apes have gone mad, says an inaudible voice from nowhere, and I have to laugh. If you want to act, you must learn to see. The invisible voice fades into the distance. I look at the sun. The energy of the magnificent fireball floods through me. Tears of joy literally shoot from my eyes. I feel thousands and thousands of light threads filling me with life and vibrating through me. Like a plant, I am drawn upwards by the radiance of the sun, and before I know it, I am standing hands-free on the fork of my tree. I feel secure, albeit without any support in the here and now of the timeless space. For the first time in my life, I feel no shame for being just a human ape. Like everyone else, I'm always too busy to notice what is actually happening here. In this moment of clarity, I view my confusion without sadness, frustration, or anger, only from the perspective of eternity. I am filled with love, tenderness, and trust in a dimension of wonder and amazement beyond all words. A cool, moist sea breeze blows across my face. The infinite expanses of the sky sparkle in a fireworks display of dazzling colors. The invisible entity has disappeared. It leaves behind a world bathed in light. The sunlit sky is filled with billions of living, dancing diamonds, as if the starry sky has come to earth. The sea of grass-blade mammoth trees. I turn my gaze from the sky, sit loosely on the fork of the branch, and let my legs become weightless. My neck relaxes as my chin slowly sinks to my chest, and I become completely calm. I close my eyes, and when I open them again, something inside me has changed, and I look down at the earth benevolently. With every change in my gaze, a new world reveals itself. A new horizon emerges in the interplay of breath and relaxation. When I change how I look, the green blades of grass grow as tall as mammoth trees. Every breath of wind rushes like a storm in waves over the sea of blades of grass and redwood trees. The sea of blades of grass sways in the wind like a single green creature, spreading across the earth until it finally flows into oceans of sand, rock, or salt water. At last, I can fly over primeval forests like in my dreams. Multi-dimensional flowers are enthroned like living cathedrals on the meadow beneath the grassy redwoods. Bees and other helicopter-like insects buzz around them. Flying, they dance around their sanctuaries. The song of their wings vibrates in the air. With a beat, even the ground beneath the flowers vibrates. The grassy redwoods and the cathedrals of flowers fly through the air. 3 gigantic wombats race through the sea of grass-blade mammoth woods. They look like a cross between a badger, a wild boar, and a dinosaur. Their run causes fractal whirlwinds that spread like sound waves and then rise into the sky, leading my gaze out of the sea of grass-blade mammoth trees. A sphere of life rises above the earth. Drops of water transcend into unearthly shining, heavenward striving, multidimensional forms that dissolve into a golden mist of sunlight. A halo of rays casts its holy glow over the sea of grass and all other spheres of life. The patterns of the sun's rays are lost in the spiraling dimensions of the rising water vapor and dissolve into manifold patterned worlds. All these forms emerge and change through my breathing meditation and the sporadic thoughts and feelings that arise. The deeper I relax, the more the golden sphere of life takes shape in the dance of the sun's rays. All these worlds are connected by their fluid movements, like foam rising from the ocean waves, then dissolving to take on new forms. Sometimes these whirlpools of inner worlds go beyond molecules and atoms into a universe of light, the source of vitality, indescribable, fantastic, and always beyond all dimensions. Everything is in rhythmic motion. Even the rocks come alive. Dark blue-violet streams rise from the stones and dissolve into glistening patterns. I pull the top of my skull upwards, expand the space behind my ears, and spread my back out like a canvas. All weight falls away from me, and rays of light grow like wings from my shoulder blades and unite with the golden streams of light from my joints to form a sphere. The world liquefies and dissolves multidimensionally. Manifold crystals form polystubble self-forms that dissolve and rise again in crystalline symphonies. In the Archimedean point, all worlds of perception, form, and formlessness merge and rise above every conceivable vertex. I experience a state that frees me from the prison of three-dimensionality. No place, no time. Everything is nothing, and this nothingness is me, soul in time. When I regain consciousness, I stare at my hands in disbelief and marvel at my body. What is this? Is my first thought. A bio-robot to rent, replies a voice that is inaudible yet softer than any voice that has ever graced my ear. Tears flow from my eyes. Who am I? I burst out. A soul in time. You have a lifetime to try yourself out. The words of the inaudible voice echo in timeless space. All that is true is my ascent, I think, as I realize that my body has climbed down the tree to the earth. Ecstatic joy floods through me as my feet touch the ground. I feel the energy rising through the crown of my head towards the sky. I stand with both feet firmly on the ground. It has taken millions of years of evolution to create atoms from generations of stars. I feel this evolution flowing through my veins, rejoicing in my cells as my feet move forward of their own accord. The sun kisses the earth. The self-organization of body, mind, and soul takes its course. My legs sprint and leap like a horse galloping through the forest. I enjoy the rolling movement of my feet as they swing up and down under my hips, allowing my upper body to float through the sea of green as if on an invisible platter. This is the evolutionary turning point. Like a thunderclap, the realization of my new state penetrates me. The world lies at my feet, upright on two legs. I can see everything and get everywhere. My feet run faster and faster. In a rush of endorphins, I sprint through the sea of grass, over the sandy path and through the forest. I experience my body as a marvel and feel how my tendons, muscles, and bones work together perfectly with my breathing. I'm not running, it's running. The diversity of human movement seems divine. I am intoxicated by my opportunities to try out this body. Even when I realize that I urgently need to do a big business, I take it in stride. I squat at the edge of the forest with a view of the sun, the sea, and the beach. The sunlight beams down on me, and I look up. My thoughts briefly wander to the sun, but then the movement of my bowels, followed by a yawn, brings me back into my body. My bowel movement in the squatting position transforms my body into another being, a worm with arms and legs. I can feel the energy flowing through my spine, flooding through me, connected and stretched by the movement at my upper and lower holes. The bright sunlight makes me close my eyes, and countless golden lights begin to dance. This must have gone on for a while, because when I wake up again, I realize that I have fallen asleep with relief. Loved and understood. As I slowly regain consciousness, I am initially unsure whether I have been reborn as a frog. Then I realize with great relief that I have been sleeping in a squatting position. I clean myself with leaves, reanimate my feet that have fallen asleep, and stretch my body. Then I sit up, and the sandy beach stretches out before me. Rocks rise to my left, with meter-high waves crashing incessantly against them. The current sweeps everything into the depths of the Southern Ocean. It's the middle of the day, and yet I feel lost in the middle of the Southern Australian wilderness. How did I get here? Once again, I see myself running up and down the cliff with the deadly waves. Then, the view into the depths suddenly leaves me standing on the summit of a small mountain that the sea only ever reveals for a moment. It dawns on me that my clothes are soaked in salt water. I realize that I have no trousers on. I hope my clothes are still hanging on the tree. I'll get dressed before I go looking for my friends, I think, and head straight back to the tree. I sigh with relief when I find the tree and my dried clothes and shoes again. Standing naked in the sun, I enjoy the last few moments without the clothes clouding my perception. After walking around, I decided to set an example. I will erect a pile of stones at the intersection of the two wide sandy paths I saw earlier in the forest. If there are heavy stones in the middle of a crossroads in the forest, someone will surely notice that I have already been there. This way, I don't have to search. Just wait. I enjoy the simplicity of my task. Over time, I enjoy searching for stones in the forest and carrying them to the crossroads so much that I walk further. Finally, I reach a clearing in the forest on my ever-lengthening paths and realize I'm standing at the end of a vast parking lot. At the other end is our van. And who do I see coming towards me from afar? Tony, Francis, and Heather. I wave to them. Now they've spotted me. I stroll towards them in a good mood. They seem excited. Before I can say anything, Tony asks, "Where have you been?" "You weren't down on the cliff, I hope. Enough people have already died there." "Yeah, me too, a few times today. Then I climbed a tree and I think the mushroom talked to me." My thoughts bubble out of me. I see the eyes of the others widen in astonishment until they burst out laughing. "That's so Lucas. It's great to have you back," says Heather, hugging me with a bright laugh. The next moment, everyone is hugging me. We spontaneously decide to cap off the day with a picnic on the beach to recover from all the excitement. Sitting in the sand, we enjoy every bite and talk enthusiastically about what we have experienced. For the first time, I feel loved and understood by people. Our journey has turned poor apes into a group of loving people. In the distance, the waves thunder against the sea of rocks.